this stuff that I've been trying to accumulate as far as knowledge in tennis is, it comes from when I was playing professional tennis. I had a really horrible experience one time. I was in the middle of a tournament, and I found myself just sitting under a table just considering suicide. And I was like, okay, this is not cool. I need to get to the bottom of this. So I talked to a friend of mine, and he said, why don't you talk to a sports psychologist? So I spoke with a sports psychologist, and he said, I can help you with a lot of stuff, and we did a lot of work. And he basically said, you just need to take time and talk to a regular psychologist, because a lot of the stuff is just things that you need to address that have nothing to do with sports. So I got in touch with a regular psychologist, and it basically saved my life, because I was going cuckoo playing tennis. So today I wanted to introduce you to Dr. Marie Balkanski. We have joined forces, and we're going to be putting together a course, an online course on basically the technique, the mind, and how to apply the two to, like, be happy when you're playing. So, Anne-Marie?
Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, I'm Anne-Marie, that's what I go by, but just to give you a bit more about me so you know who I am. I am a medical doctor, but also a certified clinical hypnotherapist. Consider myself more of a mind coach, because I help people understand their mind. I've worked with prior professional sports players, as well as just regular people in everyday life. You name the field, I've probably worked with them before. And I really want to empower people to understand, like, how whatever you're doing on the court or whatever you're doing in daily life, it is part of your mind, it's part of your subconscious mind. So I educate people to understand about the subconscious mind. And it's really your body. If you have a conscious mind, which is the thinking mind, and then we have the body, which is part of your mind. And it's actually 90% of who you are. So we may not realize that we have all these thoughts up there. We think that that's all of who we are, these thoughts that we're thinking about ourselves, but it's really the physical body and what your behaviors are, the emotions that you're feeling, when you're on court. So we have a couple of questions. And we want to keep this a very back and forth dialogue, so that we can support you guys in kind of getting clarity about your mind and when you're on the court.
Can you guys hear us?
Yes.
Is it loud enough? Okay, good. Sorry. So yes, as Anne-Marie was saying, we wanted to do it more like a Q&A, and I'm going to be answering every question, because I want to share what went through my mind, because a lot of people, when I share things, they're like, oh my God, you went through that? It's like, yeah, I'm human. I am probably worse than what a lot of people have told me. So the first thing that we wanted to address is why you play tennis. Yep. I'm sorry, I thought you raised your hand. I was like, oh, we have a question already. So why you play tennis? Out of all the questions that my sports therapist asked me when I worked with him, that was the one that really got me going in the right direction, because we ended up finding out that it had to do with the fact that I wanted to prove to myself and to my dad and to a lot of people that I was good enough. And it was kind of like carrying that, chasing that proverbial carrot that just keeps going. And, today is like, oh, I couldn't do this, so that's why I'm not good enough. So if you can shed a little light on...
Yeah, I'm curious. Does anybody know their why? Do you
Why
know
do
your
you
why
know?
And why you play? Yes, it's a nod.
I've never thought about it until this very moment. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to come up with a reason why you asked.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is interesting as I think about it, because I think I play because it's something that I think I'm good at, but then it's tough because then you play people who are better than you.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm literally setting myself up in a sense. So yeah, I think for me, I get joy out of doing things well, I guess. like,
Yeah.
having to grow up as a gay boy, and it's like, I gotta be a good boy. I gotta do things right. There's approval stuff there.
Yep.
So, aside from all the other stuff, like it's fun and it's social,
Right.
and it's exercise, but I think when it gets down to it, it's because I want to figure out how to be better and how to.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
smart. Yeah. Some people play different sports, and I found that, you know, sometimes when you're really good in one sport and then you have trouble being good in tennis, it's like, what the hell is wrong with me, right? Why am I really good here and why can't I do it here? And so one of the things that I found out is that from my own personal experience, it was like, for me, it meant if I'm good playing tennis, if I win today, then that means I'm a good person. If I'm bad, then I should retire. I retired from tennis like I don't know how many times when I was playing, and I quit and I went back. So, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I mean, I can attest that when I have worked with people that, you know, for sports, that when I ask them that question, even like why, like what is it that you want out of it? It's always, you know, what is it that you want to be better? So what is that better that comes from that?
Right.
What is that better? Is it a feeling? It's a feeling of, you know, achievement. It's a feeling of good. It's a feeling that comes in your body that just makes you feel like free, at peace, you know. And when you really dig down to people's whys, the why never changes. It's always a feeling of freedom, a feeling of joy, a feeling of just being happy with myself, a feeling of just wanting to feel like I'm good.
Yeah.
Like I'm good. And so, you know, sometimes though we're kind of self-sabotaging ourselves, not recognizing like the why, because then we get in our head, right? And then we're losing the whole focus of our why, you know, and that goes back to like the winning and losing.
Yeah. So another thing that I wanted to share was that sometimes when you start playing and you find that things are going wrong, then you start asking questions that, you know, it doesn't matter. It didn't work today. So at the end of my work with my therapist, one of the wisest things that he ever told me is like, tennis is a game. It's a racket, a ball, a tennis court, and there's a net, and that's all it is. You're giving it meaning. So it has to be healthy meaning, you know, because if you're expressing that stuff here in tennis, you're gonna express it here and here and here. It's not gonna be just tennis. It's always gonna be there. So it's good to go into the next question. Process of winning and losing. Was that the one? That,
Yeah. I mean, does anybody have any? Obviously, when we process winning, you know, there's two things. We either don't.
Yeah. So another thought that we talked about with my sports therapist was like being afraid of winning and being afraid of losing. They're two different things, and I suffer from both. And I was like, well, how could you be afraid of winning? I have to be afraid of losing, because, you know, what's so bad about winning? So I got to the conclusion that there's something called imposter syndrome, right? That maybe you can talk about.
Yeah. So how we interpret winning or losing is going to be based on the filters you have in your life. You know, everybody, even, you know, how you're interpreting this, what I'm saying, like, everybody is viewing me from a very different angle, you know, in this room. And so you have a different perspective, and all of your life is like that. You will always have your own lenses that you see life through from your past experiences. And so you will see winning and losing based on those experiences that you had. So then what will happen is we create beliefs or identities of ourselves from those past experiences. So you're seeing maybe the lens of winning as I'm not good enough, or, you know, it's not me that won, it's because I was lucky today and the weather was perfect, or whatever it is. You're not giving yourself the credit because you're identifying yourself as being fake, or that I'm not good enough, or that I'm not, worthy of this, or that I'm a fraud. And so those are beliefs that we create about from ourselves, from our past experiences and lenses.
The being afraid of winning is crazy, because you're never going to, unless you address the fact that you don't think you're good enough, you're never going to accept a compliment. You're never going to, be confident that you can beat anybody. And when you attach meaning to beating somebody, then it gets even worse. Because, I beat this person, and this person is so-and-so, and they mean this and this. It doesn't mean anything. It means that today you got all your shit together and it worked, right? And that's it. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes the other person was better and smarter and controlled things better, and it happened like that. It has nothing to do with whether you were good or not. And I'm talking as if I was an expert, because it happens to me every day, and I have to remind myself, okay, hello, practice what you preach.
Yeah.
The afraid of losing it's actually, I would say, more detrimental, because it's that anxiety that just stays with you, that just makes you choke, that just goes in. You said something smart the other day, that anxiety is produced by imagining what's going to happen.
Yeah, so anxiety is being in the future, right? We're thinking about the what ifs, or the future of that. So I lost, so therefore I am this, and you think about what will happen, in the future from that. And so anxiety is constantly living in our head in the future. Do you mind if I draw something?
Yeah, go for it.
So again, like we all have, and I always draw this for my clients, just so they have an understanding of who you are. Because who you are is all of this. Like, imagine that. And we are divided into two halves. We have one side of you, which is the conscious mind, and this is the thinking mind. I always explain this to people. You have this part of you that is your thoughts, that you're thinking about constantly. And this is actually just 10% of who you are. It's the analysis that you have, where you're judging yourself, you're thinking about yourself, you're evaluating everything that happened in the past, that happened in the future. It's that voice that is constantly going on in your head.
You sure it's that small?
And that's and that's why people do come to me, because they're trying to figure out the cause of their issue with the 10% of their mind, when they have this bigger part of who they are, which is the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind communicates very differently than this thinking mind does. The thinking mind comes through as words, it comes through as thoughts, but the subconscious mind comes through the body. So it's called the emotional body. So when you're feeling anxiety, it is your subconscious mind, your body. That's the whole mind-body approach, is it's communicating with you. And what happens, though, is it becomes divided by the age of 12. So at 12 years old, we have a lot of who we are solidified inside our body, inside our subconscious mind. So for example, let's say someone came to you and said, oh my God, you're a wonderful player. You're like, no, I'm not. Or if someone came to me and they're like, oh, you're beautiful. I'm like, no, I'm not, whatever. What do you want from me? I'm basically rejecting something that someone's telling me, and that's because of this thing right here. And so when we keep on telling ourselves something about ourselves, but we don't feel it's true, it's because there's a part of us deep down inside of our subconscious mind that's saying it's not true. So we have little parts that are trapped inside of here, essentially. And so parts that feel like we're not good, parts that feel like we're not, capable, or that, that I'm not pretty, whatever it may be. And so what happens really quickly is the conscious mind will say to ourselves, are we good, or are we pretty? And this part blocks it from going through. And so what we want to do is we want to look at the feeling as the body's communicating from one of these parts that is telling us, like, why are we feeling this? Where did it come from? What's the story behind it? What is it that's happened, your lenses or your experiences that created that from your past?
I have an example, and maybe you can help me figure this out, because it was always very hard for me to express the fact that I was uncomfortable. And even if I was cold, or if I was hot, or if I didn't like something, I couldn't say it. So I was always not listening to my feelings, because I'm not supposed to, say it's too loud, the volume in the car or the air conditioning. So I'm staying at some house in a tournament and the AC is blasting and I'm freezing and I can't say anything. And it was such a struggle to always allow my feelings to come out because I was trying to be something that I wasn't. So, just a testament to the fact that it's stupid little things like those. If you don't listen to what your body's telling you, you're gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's almost like what we've been taught throughout most of our life is that, and that's because we don't know how, we don't know. We're mostly told to push down or ignore things because we're not properly guided by our parents, by society, by TV, by social media on like these parts of us, and even, I could say just like with gender-wise, we're socially influenced that it's bad for you to even have feelings or to cry or have emotions. Like these are all now. So what do? We just push down and we suppress them, and we ignore parts of them. But they're a big part of who we are, and recognizing of why we have them. Mm-hmm.
So what would be your recommendation on getting rid of the negative thoughts, whether it be in the mattress or in a relationship or in the grocery store,
Yeah.
when people are doing what you want them to do? The self-defeating negative self-talk. I've heard before, but looked into this for a friend.
Her rate is $99.
You think you're nice, anyway, I've heard that you can just let them go like $1,000 or whatever, but I'm just interested in what you're thinking.
Yeah, that's actually perfect for our next question.
Which is fully present or?
Yeah.
Yes. Are you fully present?
Yeah.
And it's perfect for this and there is a really simple example that I'm sure everyone that has ever taken a lesson from me has heard me say. When you watch the ball, you have to really watch the ball when it bounces, not when you want it to bounce. So I always play a game with a person. So I'm telling, okay, I'm gonna say bounce when I see the ball bounce, and you're gonna say bounce when you see the ball bounce. And guess what? Who says bounce first? They do. I'm like, the ball is not even on the ground, and you're already saying bounce. And it's a perfect example of you going, okay, I'm gonna hit the ball cross court, and then that person is gonna go there, and then when that person goes there, this side is gonna be open, and when that side is, so you like this whole plan over here, and then all of a sudden the ball bounces and you hit the frame, and you're like, oh, it's gotta be because I wasn't ready quick enough, my left foot was in the wrong place, and it's like, oh my God. I'm talking from experience because I had like a million voices that were telling me all these things, and it's simple.
So that's the whole living, like the thoughts, we're living in those thoughts. And to go back to like the question, like we are living in those thoughts, so we're not being present. We're just completely immersed in those thoughts, and those thoughts are driving us to all these different potentials, what ifs, whatever's past that is not present with here and now. And so my advice for someone that is very much in our thoughts or having a lot of negative thoughts is, number one, be aware of them. If you're not aware of your thoughts or that they're even negative or they're not serving you, then you can't fix it, you can't change it. You have to be aware of something to change it. It's like if you notice, oh, my backhand or this side is not right, okay, I'm aware that it's not right, so I need to fix it. So you have to be aware of whatever it is. And so the thoughts, being aware of them first is part of the whole process, and then catching yourself. Because we don't catch ourselves. We just live in this automation, right? And so the thoughts are just like, oh, whoa, it just, I can't even believe I just had this whole stream like a movie playing in my head. All these thoughts.
Yeah.
And so it's
all the time.
yeah.
But it's kind of like when you're breathing, meditating. That's block out everything.
Yeah.
And I like that thing with the ball, the bounce, and then that translates well for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because playing is meditating.
Yeah.
Playing is meditating.
I didn't see that.
Yeah. It's any sports you do, it's your body. It's not this.
Yeah.
So you gotta quiet that down and let it not play. It's like trying to drive with your thoughts. Have you ever drive with your thoughts? You can't. You play with your body, you don't play with your thoughts. And so you learn how to quiet your thoughts. And meditation is one of those great things, yeah.
So when it comes to like technical things that you can do to try to stay in the present is super simple. Wherever the ball is where your attention should be, because you are hitting the ball, right? So if the ball is on your side, it's all about you. You watch the ball, you plan what you want to do, and then when the ball is on that side, it's all about them. What are they doing? Do they look like they're gonna hit the ball really hard, or is the person looking like it's gonna slice, or is the person starting to run late, which means you better hurry up because they're probably gonna miss hit and they're gonna hit the ball short. So rather than, and you know, when I talk about reading body language, and for me, it used to be the hardest thing to do. I was like, how can I see that the person is pointing to the left? Because I just can't see from that far, right? The reason why I couldn't see it was because I was so far up in my head thinking, oh my God, that's not really the ball that I wanted to hit. And I got here late, and if I was wearing the shirt that I wanted to, then I could have been, and so if you saw, and you guys can, relate to that. If you could write down the amount of things that go through your head before you hit the ball. So, and in the meantime, the person is showing you a lot of stuff. So just try to get clear on what's happening. What's another example is, what is the closest thing to the ball? Your racket, right? And what is the closest thing to your racket? Your hand. So shouldn't you be worrying about what you're doing with your hand first before you start trying to return? Like when you see people returning a serve, and it's all about the hips. Because they're thinking, I'm gonna drive the freaking ball with my body, when this is the part that's eventually, I always tell everybody, the body is like the slaves of your hand. Whatever the hand needs, the body needs to do. So if my hand is wanting to go forward, then make the arm wait for the hand. So once the hand starts pulling, then the arm goes. And then once the arm goes, then the body goes. When the body goes, then the leg goes, right? So just try to concentrate on what is happening. If you can get into the zone, getting into the zone is just paying attention to one thing, what's happening. You shouldn't be able to hear somebody screaming or a plane flying. Is you choose. We all make decisions as to what are we listening to. If I'm looking for excuses, I could find a really good excuse of someone just talking on the phone really loud right next to my match, going, that's why I missed the ball, right? Anyway, so does anybody have any questions about, how to be present, or things that you do that you've always wanted to change?
That was mine a bit. My
Yep.
mind going
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Laundry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard to catch yourself too, because again, it's like, but it is the tapping on your shoulder every time you do that, and not getting mad at yourself for doing that. Like you're just, the thoughts are a good thing to have. It's not like a bad thing. It's just not all of who you are.
Yeah.
So it has its place in time, to help us to evaluate things. But when we're doing something that involves purely the body and presence, then we got to remember and just take ourselves out and recognize what you're telling yourself during a match. Recognize what it is you're saying. I worked with one professional in their golf, and they were doing really well. They were high up in their league, but then they all of a sudden had like this conversation with someone that it was called a yips, and they all of a sudden started having a yips because of this conversation. They were influenced because they were concerned that they would have something. So then they created it. So then they created this body thing, because the things that were going through their mind when they were having this automatic like just like twitch that they thought they could not control was actually coming from them of feeling like they're gonna fail. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, and that's what was going, oh my God, what are people gonna think? People are looking at me, everybody's staring at me, what if they do?
Yeah.
And now they just lost presence, and they self-sabotage themselves by creating this, by creating it on their own. Without realizing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, so I was going to say this. I grew up as a wrestler, which is a sport where I could take a lot of the frustration, whether it was towards myself or the opponent or anybody else, and I could kind of use that. And what I find in tennis is it requires more and more relaxation, and the more tense the moment gets, the more you have to back off and let go into it, which is so different for me, and I find that so much more challenging because what happens for me in tennis is I start to like, I can tell by my grip on the racket that I'm trying to strangle something. But that mindfulness that you mentioned, which I was lucky, Mark was my tennis coach, constantly reminding me of that because you knew how aggressive I was. And I think that's like a wrestler. And a constant reminder, more than the stroke, more than anything else, it's just the almost like I feel like I should maybe write it on my racket face somewhere. Just, back off. Just,
to remind
breathe.
yourself.
Whatever that reminder is to ease.
There's always something that works for all of us. Something like moving your strings or fixing your grip or, hitting your shoe. The title that we gave to this talk was So Many Emotions, So Little Time. And if you think about it, there are so many things that go through your head. And if you can identify what it feels to be choking, what it feels to be anxious, what it feels to be sad, what it feels to be indifferent, then once you realize, oh, okay, that's what I'm feeling, then you can treat it, then you can breathe and, so.
One of the first thing is like, number one, we don't want to push down, we don't want to ignore it, because then what happens? We'll eventually pop, we'll eventually explode. It's energy. Everything in life is energy. Nothing is created nor destroyed. This is Newton's law. Nothing is created or destroyed. And emotions are that too. So emotions are not created or destroyed. We either have to transform them or let them go. And so if we're holding on to any emotions, and you can feel and sense when you're holding on to stuff, you end up popping, and one of the ways to let things go is to understand it. That's actually transforming it. Because when we can understand where it comes from, then we can, number one, be like, it's like an aha moment when you realize, oh, that's where that came from. And then it instantly feels like a release, because it is. And so, like Martha says, like looking at the emotion, just, whenever you have thoughts that are creating feelings, then check in with the feeling and find out what it is that I believe that I am because of this. Where did this come from? Or what does this remind me of? And sure enough, it will help lead you there, but you have to create space to allow that to come forward, because we get so used to kind of pushing down, ignoring it, suppressing it so much that it becomes like your baseline. So it's like, if anybody had a tattoo where it's like constantly vibrating on you, and there comes a point where you're just numb in that area, because it becomes your baseline. And so,
is there any emotion that you guys pinpoint that happens all the time that you're very aware of? Anything?
Fear.
Fear? So, what do you think about fear?
Fear is, it is a fight or flight. where it can create attention, fear. And depending.
Yeah, go for it.
So I call this a self-sabotage loop. So fear is the emotion that's going to create a behavior. If we're fearful of something, I know for me, I would withdraw from things. I would just act out impulsively. There comes a behavior. So emotion creates behavior. But what created the emotion? A belief. A belief created an emotion. So a fear that, I'm going to fail, or that I'm not good, or that, creates the emotion, which will create the behavior.
How do you fix that?
That didn't come out from nowhere, though. The belief, we are like a computer. We are. We have neurons and electrons that are pulsing through my body, and I could not engage or move my hands if I didn't have electrical impulses going through my body. It's the same thing with a computer. And so when you get your computer for the first time, you have all these programs on it, but someone put those programs on it. And so we, like humans, are also programmed. And so when we are born and we engage through life, we are basically looking at the world, taking in data. And that's just like someone sitting on the computer typing in ones and zeros, or they're programming to say this is how this computer needs to behave. So when you go into Microsoft Word and you open it up, there's because someone programmed it to behave that way. And we're the same. So there's a story or a relationship that you have had that created that story of that I'm gonna fail or that I'm not good. And that makes me feel fear, which will make me act out or withdraw. And so how do we fix it is we look at the story and we change the story. We change what we're telling ourselves, because that is the root cause, that is the original programming that's held inside the subconscious mind. That makes sense. So,
Anybody else that wants to share any emotion that keeps banging on your head?
I just have an awareness. Right as you were saying it, I just saw a pattern. I get angry. Anger is my go-to in all of those moments. And I was just realizing that when I was young playing sports, I didn't get that angry, but then I got criticized by my father and my coaches for not showing enough emotion. And eventually, displaying the anger was more of a way of showing them I cared, backing them off in some way. And now I just do it. But I don't need to. I need to relax and go back to what's my technique.
nice. Yeah, very good. Yeah, those little insights that just pop out of nowhere. So when we analyze and look for things, you know, sometimes that can get in the way of just allowing things to pop up. Because again, the subconscious mind knows a lot more than you know. And when you get those little things that pop up, you're just like, what? Like, they're little insights, then that's definitely it. And so when you're aware of it, you could just change your story.
So I don't know if any of you have found yourself going between points really quickly. Like serving, you miss the first serve, you miss the second, okay, let's go, next ball here. So, and the more you keep playing, the quicker you start going between things. That happens to me all the time. And so I started, trying to analyze, why is it that I'm trying to go so fast? Why can't I take the entire time in between, sets or games? Why can't I sit there and just, I would be the first one waiting for the other person to serve while the other person's going like drinking water, peeling a banana, and I'm like, in my case, I was just like trying to avoid dealing with everything that was going in my head, because if I was busy doing something, then I didn't have to deal with the fact that I'm afraid, that I'm feeling this, that something is chasing me, that all this stuff. So there are reasons why you do what you do, and when you catch yourself doing something that it shouldn't be, then you need to ask yourself, okay, number one, I admit that I'm doing this. Number two, why? Why am I doing this stuff, So the last thing that we wanted to talk about was about playing doubles. Because that can be a touchy subject. I'm very fortunate and unfortunate that I get to hear so many stories from people, and a lot of them have to do with doubles. Like, oh, this person doesn't understand me, or this person, I don't know how to tell them what I think, or, it all comes down to relationships, right? And
yeah, absolutely.
So
remember when I said, like, we all have lenses that we're seeing everything through, and we have egos. We all create ego aspects of ourselves. And again, I brought my little board, so I'm going to use it. No. And we all have three primary ego aspects. We all have this. We all have an adult ego, and the adult ego is developed older, after 12, when those minds are kind of divided. And we all have an inner child ego. And some of you may have heard this, but inner child doesn't care about, really, it is developed from our childhood, and it doesn't care about the consequences of anything. It just wants to feel good. It's, we all have it. Inner child will come out when I binge watch on Netflix or eat a big tub of ice cream. I just want to feel good. Like, I don't care about anything else, even if I'm trying to lose weight. And we also have an inner parent. And most people aren't aware of this, but the inner parent really is the hypercritical ego part of us. And inner child is developed from ourselves, like it is our frozen aspect of ourselves, and inner parent is developed by all authority figures around in your life. So teachers, priests, doctors, parents, older sisters, brothers, it doesn't matter as long as they had authority over you, and it comes through as a very lecturing part of you, like you should have done this, you should have done that, why don't you do it this way, why don't you do it that way? And so what happens is we have this transactional analysis between people where we're mostly popping into some ego aspect of ourselves. And so even in a doubles, you may even see that someone is being more childlike and someone is being more parent-like, where there's a dominant or submissive but inferior aspect, because we're not realizing that we're engaging in this kind of interaction where we're popping into different ego aspects of ourselves. And so it's kind of like if you're in a long-term relationship and like you've been married for like 10 plus years and you seem to get in the same argument and you bring up all the same things that have happened, like the same exact thing when you're mad. You're like, you should have done this, you should have done, you never cleaned the dishes, what's wrong with you? And that person is basically taking on the parental role in an aspect. And then the other person may take on the more inner child role, where they're just like, I just want to relax and chill. I don't want to clean the damn dishes and blah, blah. And so there's this interaction. But there's also when two people become like children, and you're like, I want, and the other one's like, I want too. And there's no resolution, And so I would say becoming aware of like maybe someone's ego that could be coming out on the court. Someone could be really like, wanting it done a certain way because they may be in a certain aspect of themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So,
It's a long explanation.
so one of the things that I was asking Anne-Marie, because I was always the one that, I don't want to have confrontations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So every time that I would play doubles, I'd be like the inner child, right? I just want peace, everybody's happy, and if somebody's being mean, I'll be like, I know I'm not gonna play with that person ever again after this match, so why say anything? Why go through the annoying trouble of saying something? And little did I know that I'm using it as an excuse to not speak up, because that is another issue that has troubled me my whole life, because I don't want to say what I really feel, because I don't want people to know certain things about me, or I don't want to make somebody feel bad. But my suggestion to you is you have to say something, and it doesn't have to come up as a criticism, but you need to really
so you need to be the adult. You just need to be the adult. And how does an adult handle things? They're aware that their emotions are maybe popping them, because the thing is, the inner parent and inner child are very emotional. They are a very emotional aspect of us. And the adult, and that's why we will be in conflict with ourselves too, because we have parts of us that are very much more inner child and inner parent, and then we have an adult aspect that tends to be much more mature and wise. They kind of look back at all the things that we have gone through, and they're like, dude, let's look at this and get over it. Sometimes you'll have adult parts that even look at the inner child like, why are you acting this way? And so we have to just be aware that we have these emotions that are also tricking us, because going back to like an argument, when two couples are arguing, if they're feeling that feeling, all they can see is that those memories or things that reminded them of being angry. Anger, fear, is like a calling card. An emotion is like a calling card, bringing any memories forward that remind you of that. Again, that's why when couples will argue and they're angry, they bring up all the times that they made them angry, because that's like a calling card in the mind. That's the programming. You cannot easily call happy memories, because the emotion is the memory. The emotion is part of the memory. And so how do you, number one, you make sure you check your emotions, you calm yourself down, you pop into your adult, and you just be mature and assertive about it. Recognizing if someone is like having like a rough time, you throw it back at them, so we can even role play.
Yeah. So what I was gonna add to that is that number one, you have to accept the fact that they are the way they are, and they're not gonna change within the next few minutes.
Yeah.
This person is not gonna become, you know, sensitive and understanding, and also realize that it's their journey. They are exhibiting that behavior because of something that's happening, and it probably has nothing to do with you. I was always putting myself in the position like, oh my God, I did something I shouldn't have poached. You know, she told me not to do it, and I'm still doing it. So it has nothing to do with me. They got nervous, and they somehow the parent, you know, part of them is coming up. So if you can accept those two things and then address the person, knowing that it has nothing to do with you, and they're going through a hard time, and just say, hey, look, I feel like you're, you know, I'm getting some sense that you're feeling nervous, you know, I'm doing the best I can. There are ways to say things, and there are ways to honor what you want to do and still have fun, because you paid for the tournament, you paid for, you know, there is something that can come out of that match. Even if you know you're never going to play with that person ever again, it's still good, you know, to say something.
Yeah, if you're going to start with something, always clarify your intention, number one. If you feel the urge to need to say something to someone, you know, if it's someone that you continue to play doubles with and you need to say something, then I would say clarify your intention. Hey, we're here to have a good time, we're here to learn, we're here to do this, you know, and that's your intention. Your intention is that. And I know you're here to have a good time, to learn, blah, 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 but I actually don't use the word but because that would eliminate. However, you know, we need to do this or do that, you know, whatever it may be, for us to have a better time.
Is there anything you guys, you know, experience when you're playing doubles that you're like, oh, how should I deal with this? Yep.
So when I play doubles, there's one player, I always feel like I'm playing three players against me. My partner is not cooperating with me because we're down to the game. He expresses emotions, and then that's just surprised on me because something like I made him comfort there. I didn't get encouraged from him. Instead, I get criticized from him. So that's just put me, you know, more pressure. So playing next point, next game, and sometimes I end up losing. So how to deal with the partner for that?
He's overcritical.
It's not on the same team.
Yeah, he's overcritical. He's in his inner parent a lot. I'm going to guarantee you 100% that he's very critical of himself. Very critical of himself. And so what criticism he's giving you is a reflection of him, not of you. And so first recognize that. I mean, if most likely this person it doesn't matter if it was you or someone else, I'm sure they would be very critical. And so you have to almost kind of make that recognize that so that you can almost disassociate yourself from projecting onto you, because it has nothing to do with you in regards to your ability to perform. All that's going to do is you're going to suck it in, and now you're going to really be that. So you're taking on his inner parent, his criticism, and making that yours when that's all them. That's all them. And they need to recognize that. So it's kind of like they're not going to recognize it if you take that on. So if you now take on that criticism and you actually don't perform well or don't play, now that person can point the finger at you and say, oh, you see, you did it this way, you did it that way. But if you continue to recognize that that's coming from them and you perform well, and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to let that get to me because I know that's coming from them, it's not me. Now I'm going to perform the way I need to perform. Then they see, because it's like a mirror bouncing back. I'm the one that's being overly critical. I'm the one, and it's coming, you're bouncing that back when you don't take that in. Because it's not you, I guarantee you.
Yeah. And like, winning doesn't mean that you're gonna actually win a match. You should look at it from, maybe you wanted to come to the net, and you came to the net during that match. So that to me is winning. Maybe you wanted to use a slice to approach and you've never done it. So concentrate on the things that actually mean something to you, rather than a result that, you know, maybe it happened for, you know, XYZ reason. So find a way to have fun, find a way to honor what it is that you're doing. You know, you're growing your game. What are the strategies that you want to use, and get something out of that match. Don't let it go. Don't let, just like like I was saying, oh, I'm just gonna, you know, lose, and I'm gonna be really democratic about it and say, hey, that's okay. You know, we'll try it again. You're lying. You're being a hypocrite, right?
Yeah.
So just get something out of it.
Yeah,
Any more questions before
good one.
we close it? So, so we put some flyers in every table. We are gonna start doing an online course, and you guys have heard me talk. I wanted to write a book, and I was like, okay, I'd rather just put everything in an interactive way where you could go back and forth and see it. So I've joined forces with Anne-Marie, and we're gonna try to, you know, tackle the game from a technological point of view and a physical point of view, because I believe that anybody can learn to play tennis, anybody can get better, and it ultimately it has to do with the decisions that you make with what you know. So if you can put the two together, then you can make a strategy that works for you, and eventually the reason why we should all do anything is because we can, and because it makes us happy, right? So anyway, so that was it. So good luck to everybody.
Is it gonna be like webinar format, or is it gonna be like interactive?
It's gonna be a course.
questions, or
Yeah,
like-
make sure you put your email and your
Yeah,
sign
sign
up
up.
on the QR.
Yeah,
This
it's
QR is
It does everything.
Yeah.
this one is was
So
didn't pop
subscribe,
up.
and we're gonna be
so-
sending you, like, you know.
Thank you.
Very
Anne.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you, Martha.
So much fearful already.
It's in the middle of it.
Thank you.
Hey, sweet pea.
Yeah.
How are you? How's the paw?
It's alright. It's alright. It's coming along. You know? I think
I kind of like the whole thing. You might keep a six-pack in there too. And
I can't. This
Yeah,
thing
this
is
is-
so good to take off. Every time I take it off, it's like taking off the mask, or you know, or just it just feels like you get your freedom back. And but when I'm out, I've got to keep it, because if not, it's like anytime you go out and you have an injury for some reason, everybody will bump you, everybody will touch you.
Yeah.
It's
Everybody will touch
incredible.
you.
It's incredible. It's like I don't think anybody ever touched my shoulder, or
like a
like for 3
magnet.
months until I had surgery,
a
and then
magnet.
everybody grabs it.
So what was it exactly?
Full torn rotator cuff.
Oh man.
So all that time I kept pushing and just pushing through everything, going, you know, it'll bounce
Oh, I
back.
can do
I was
this.
just completely torn.
Everybody's going like, hello. There's something wrong.
which part of the chart is that from?
That was, let me think what part that would be. Probably the inner parent. Just saying,
Exactly.
just shut up and push on
Harder.
through.
Do it. Do it now. You gotta be the best.
Oh my God, this is the world I live in every day now. It's just, and we talked about this, like during the pandemic, I just went so deep into my meditation. It just kind of felt
Nice.
like, boy, there's this like debris that's been here forever that clouds the skies around me, and it's like, I'm done. I really want to clear this stuff up, and I'm gonna use this downtime. And it's just, I can feel the process like speeding up now.
Nice.
You know?
What do you use
So this was great.
What do you use for meditation?
I do TM,
Okay.
but that's my base.
Transcendental meditation, but do you listen to anything or?
No, it's mantra based.
Mantra based. Okay.
So it's still the same kind of very, very gentle redirect.